Hi everyone, great to have you with us for another Newsroom episode of VLGA Connect. As always, joined by the CEO of the VLGA, Catherine Arndt. Welcome, Catherine.
Hello, Chris. How are you today?
Very well, thank you. How are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad at all. It's another week and a lot happening in the world of local government news.
Absolutely, there is. And after our discussion last week, which was prompted by the March for Justice events, it's an opportunity, I guess, to highlight a bit more of the work that the VLGA has been doing in that equity space, because International Women's Day feels like a long time ago now, but it was really only a week or so back. And I also wanted to touch on, get your thoughts on a piece that's been published out of that study that the VLGA is contributing to with the Melbourne University researchers, which has got some mainstream attention this week.
Look, it has. So for our viewers who may not recall, the VLGA is partnering with Dr. Andrea Carson from La Trobe University and Associate Professor Leah Ruppiner from Melbourne University. And as you've indicated, they've had a great piece in the conversation last week, but they actually came and presented at the VLGA's International Women's Day celebration, which was held on the 9th of March, to talk about this research project, which looks at women's political trajectories over 4 years, and particularly looking at women in local government. And what they've reported in the conversation, and certainly as part of the initial findings from the research project coming out of the recent local government elections, is that women in local government, women standing for election in local government and councillors in local government are certainly experiencing and have reported experiencing high levels of sexual harassment and gender inequality.
It's really quite diabolical, some of the stories I've heard, even apart from this research. But I guess the opportunity for some of this early research to be exposed is because of what's happening in the federal sphere, isn't it? And really, the researchers are saying it's not just federal or state politicians, for that matter, but very much prevalent at the local level as well, sadly.
Yes, that's exactly right. The findings are quite extraordinary. I'm just trying to find the stats here, but half the female councillors, so 49% compared to 35% of men, reported receiving emails, text messages, or social media posts with offensive content at least a couple of times during their terms. So that's quite extraordinary. And more than a third, so 38% compared to 10% of men, reported someone making demeaning, rude, or derogatory remarks about their gender during the recent election cycle. So quite extraordinary statistics when we look at what is the grassroots level of government, women standing for election in local government experiencing quite unacceptable behaviour.
This has to be exposed, Catherine, I understand that, and that's one of the purposes of the research, to shine a light on these issues. What challenges me is what is going to be done about it and who's going to do it.
Yes, and that's a very good question. We saw at the time of the local government elections, there was actually a parliamentary committee inquiry in Victoria into the use of social media in election campaigns. Now, interestingly enough, the terms of that inquiry didn't extend to local government, and the closing date for submissions to that inquiry closed, I think, before the local government election process had finished. Now, the VLGA wrote to, as did other stakeholders in the sector, wrote to the chair of that committee and requested an extension, and were subsequently granted the opportunity to put a submission in to that. So that's well worth our viewers having a look at. I believe that should be available on the parliamentary website, but we can include a link if it is still there. So there's a few levels of this. I mean, we also have the local government inspectorate, who received, I think, 3 times as many complaints than they did in the 2016 elections, and a lot of those were also related to the use of social media. and particularly it seemed to be a vehicle where some of those demeaning and derogatory remarks were being made towards both male and female candidates, but women certainly have reported through this study a greater occurrence of that than the men who were also interviewed as part of this. So I think that that is a good question. We have invited the Commissioner, Kate Jenkins, to come onto the VLGA Connect program, and she certainly indicated that once she's finished the work that she's doing at the moment for federal parliament, that she would be certainly interested in coming and talking with us towards the end of the year. And that would, of course, back onto the work we've already done, reporting the outcomes of the Victorian Auditor General's report into sexual harassment in the local government sector. So I don't think I've answered your question as to who's going
I didn't expect you to have the answer. I think the important thing is we keep talking about and highlighting the issues and work our way towards some sort of space where this sort of behaviour is seen by all to be unacceptable, called by everyone when they see it, and there'd be some real repercussions for continuing to behave that way.
That's right, and that's the beauty of this particular research project we're doing with Andrea and Leah, in that it's the first of its kind. So at the end of the project, so in 4 years, there will be recommendations made as to what needs to happen to break down some of these barriers. What is stopping women from standing in for politics, basically? What are the barriers and what can be done to break those down? So I know that seems a long way away, but I think we have to just keep talking about it in the meantime.
And Andrea and Leah are lined up to talk to us about their observations to date in the next month or so on VLGA Connect. So I look forward to that, and I know you'll be part of that conversation as well. In fact, we've got a few very interesting guests lined up. Stay tuned for more on that over the next few weeks, Catherine.
Oh, and can I say, Chris, today marks a very significant episode of VLGA Connect. It's our 150th episode.
Wow. So it is. Very good. Yes. That's a big milestone, isn't it?
It is a milestone. And I must say that all of the interviews have just been top notch. And we've really spoken with every commissioner and all of the key agencies that impact the local government sector. But that's exactly what we're here to do, and we're to bring those discussions to our members in the local government sector. And
we'll continue to do so, and we're having a good time doing it, I have to say.
Yeah, so it's been delightful having conversations with people, and which brings me to the live the global panel we had the other day with in conjunction with LGIU and also LG Pro Victoria. We had 2 panellists from the London Borough of Barking and Dagenham, and a director from Hawkesbury City up in New South Wales. And can we just say our thoughts are with Linda Perrine, who is the director from that council. She spoke to us last week at that panel about the significant challenges they've had. They had the bushfires, followed by floods, followed by COVID. And now, of course, we know that they're at that stage, they're experiencing a 1 in 100 year weather pattern up there, and significant flooding and evacuation is occurring as we're speaking.
Yes, I think 16, as last checked, LGAs that have been subject to natural disaster declarations, which means that funding assistance can flow through, but it's so widespread and it's not over yet. That's the scary thing. So our thoughts go out to all who are dealing with that in New South Wales. The other member of the panel that I don't think you got to mention there, Catherine, was Cathy Henderson from Moreland. And all of those panellists told some fabulous stories. And without wanting to spend too much time on this, it is available as a watchback to members. So I think you just contact the VLGA if you'd like to access that. And if you're not a member, for a small fee, you can purchase a ticket to watch it, and it's well worth your time. A little bit of other news from around the sector this week, Catherine. You may have heard that the City of Kingston, whose CEO Julie Reid, until recently the CEO Julie Reid has moved on to Local Government Victoria as Executive Director and is lined up to be on VLGA Connect very soon.
Right.
They've announced their interim CEO, who's Tim Tamlin. Nice to have Tim back in the fold. Used to be South Gippsland Shire's CEO for 10 years and a long-term senior executive with other councils prior to that.
Yes, it's good to have Tim back, and there's a little bit of movement happening at the CEO rank level in local government, but that's not necessarily surprising given that some of those CEOs were coming towards the end of their terms anyway, and there is, of course, a new term of council in place.
Yes, it's that time in the cycle. Sarah Philpott at Mildura last week announced that she's moving on, going back to Mount Gambier, where she started her career as CEO. I think she finishes in May. I'm aware of a few more that, as you say, are getting towards the end of contracts and close to, I guess, those retirement decisions that will become known in the next couple of months. But there's about 13 on my list now of CEO positions to be resolved in the next few months.
Well, that's quite a high number.
It is indeed. What else has caught your eye this week, if anything, Catherine?
Well, the Victorian Auditor General's office has been very busy again, and as our viewers know, we've had the Auditor General, Andrew Greaves, on the program a couple of times now talking about various audit reports, but they've just released an audit report into local roads. So there are some interesting findings there for the local government sector, and would warrant, I think, Andrew coming back and perhaps talking with us about that.
That would be good. He spent quite a bit of time with us talking about the sexual harassment audit. This one is very important as well, and I think there's 10 recommendations in this report that they're making to all councils. It's a pretty significant responsibility. The state's councils manage the majority of roads around Victoria, and of course they're very, very important to communities to be maintained to the standard that is expected.
Absolutely. I think I read that Victorian councils are responsible for maintaining more than 132,000 kilometres of local roads. So that's a lot of road. Well,
and the asset base in Victoria for councils is well over $1 billion in the hands of and the management of council. So it's pretty big stuff, isn't it? Yeah. So that would be good to talk more about that. The other thing before you go is you might want to give the Heart Awards a plug, because I know the nominations are closing very soon for that. They are the Heart Awards, our annual Helping Achieve Reconciliation Together awards program that we do in conjunction with Reconciliation Victoria, calling for nominations at the moment. I think they're due to close in about a week. So if you haven't had a look at that, please do so. There's a lot of information on our social media pages and also our website. But looking forward to, I mean, the calibre of nominations that come in, they revolve around initiatives that local community groups and councils put in place to assist reconciliation activities in their local areas. And it's just wonderful, some of the work that's been happening out there in our communities. Little Birdie tells me some really terrific nominations coming in this year too. So looking forward to hearing more about that, Catherine. Can I take the opportunity again to thank you at the VLGA for your support as sponsor of the Local Government News podcast, which is going really well after 5 episodes. I've got to say, well ahead of the sort of success markers that I had set down initially. So really appreciate the support from the VLGA for that. Oh, look, it's our absolute pleasure to be supporting what is yet an extension, I think, of this program and the ability to get out there and talk about news that is of interest to the local government sector. Thank you, Catherine. Always good to catch up in the newsroom. Another busy week, I'm sure, and I'll look forward to talking with you this time next week. Yep, well, take care, and I'll talk to you then, Chris. Catherine Arndt, the CEO of the VLGA, in the newsroom here on VLGA.